Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing you another Wizarding Wars game. This time we have got two of the regulars here in the Harry Potter TCG revival community. We've got Morrell Miller versus Sammy DeSalvo. Morrell playing an Angelina Johnson Quidditch deck. Angelina is a character that we have seen being pretty popular in the 3 weeks or so we've been running these events, and I expect to see her a lot more. There's just a lot of new Quidditch cards trying to push Quidditch into a good spot, and I think it's in a pretty decent spot now, as we've seen it winning, actually, last week. But Angelina Johnson helping get that action advantage in a nice, easy way for Quidditch decks, and a lot of Quidditch decks are kind of circling around these matches as the win con. And so since you're going to have the matches in play anyway, you're going to be playing to that win condition, Angelina is just an excellent choice. And on Sammy's side, we've got one of the new starting characters, Armando Dippett, who we actually haven't seen any Armando action yet. Armando Dippett here is going to be at the end of each of your turns. If you've played a Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin card, you draw a card or deal 2 damage to your opponent. I know that these cards are appearing sideways, guys. Sorry, but I'll try and make sure I read them out loud to you. Looks like we are going for a mulligan on Morrell's side. You really want to see, there's a couple key cards, and Quidditch actually has a lot of cards that can help them set up, but you want to see either the broom that searches for a match, you want to see the, just any of the one-drop matches in your hand for that first turn, because you want to just start getting that action advantage as early as possible. Or also, Quidditch Supplies location lets you use an action once a turn to go and search your deck for one of those items that requires Quidditch power. And knowing Morrell's Quidditch deck, I expect to see, you know, all those good Quidditch items. You're going to see Quaffles, you're going to see Bludgers, you're going to see a lot of those types of cards coming into play. And a nice, gentlemanly start here as we play just 2 lessons with our 2 actions and pass. Turn that up a little bit there. And it's going to be a back and forth here of looks like we missed that match, but that's fine. Just 2 lessons is the call and response, and Sammy going around the table with another 2 lessons. This is like poker when everybody just checks, right? Just yeah, it's fine. Let's just keep building, keep building. Not going to do anything to each other. Not going to punish each other. But taking the first salvo here, Morrell is going to drop a 3rd lesson and go right into the Quaffle. The Quaffle acts as another lesson, but has the added benefit of letting you search your deck when you play it. You get a match and reveal it. So that's cool because, again, this is some more synergy with Angelina Johnson, making sure we get that match ASAP. Now, these guys did have a chance to sideboard after their first game. I messed up on my stream. I wasn't able to catch the first game. I'm sorry for that, guys. But just so you know, Sammy has lost 1 game here already to a triple bludger, so he's had a chance to sideboard in. So it looks like Dumbledore's Suspension is another one of the new adventures here. We're going to get to take a look at this in this game and see how effective this is against our opponent. So this is one of the few adventures that has that requirement where you have to have played 4 lessons already to have the ability to even play this card. But once you do, the effect is that your opponent's starting character loses all of its abilities. And to solve, your opponent has to skip a total of 3 actions. The reward, of course, is that the opponent gets to play... sorry, their next spell costs 2 less power to play. Now what that's doing is that's shutting off Angelina Johnson. So now we're taking away that extra action from Morrell. It did cost us 2 actions for Dumbledore's Suspension, and it's going to take our opponent 3 actions to skip it. Our opponent's already invested 1 action into it. So you could say that we've spent 2, and virtually this has already taken away 2 actions, right? Because it took 1 from the character and 1 from our opponent. So that's pretty decent. I would say this card's doing its job. It's already at parity on actions, and it's just going to plus for us because, you know, Morrell's going to... if I was him, I would just let this sit here and give up on this. I wouldn't lose any more actions than just my starting character not having that ability. I would just focus on a nice normal game of Quidditch here probably. But we are just going to use the next 2 actions to get rid of Dumbledore's Suspension. Now, I think Dumbledore's Suspension is not actually that bad for us. Yeah, we lose that extra action potential but we sank 3 actions into it, so there would have been 3 turns of us definitely having a match out before it's even, you know, before this is actually hurting us. Or, sorry, before solving this is actually good for us. And I don't know, I think we could have done a lot in those turns. I think you just leave this out. I think you just use those actions to build. Make him, you know, the fact that he took 2 actions away from himself and he's not generating any extra actions, I think that's kind of punishing enough. And then he can't play another adventure. Just let that be, you know, just keep playing. And we're going to have Slytherin Common Room now. This is not a card that a lot of people see, but it is a Chamber of Secrets rare. So as we say in our playgroup, it's always worth a second look on that merit alone. Before each player's turn, he or she counts the number of Slytherin cards that they have in play and does that much damage to his or her opponent. So now we're seeing the payoff. We're seeing why Sammy's deck had that heavier lean towards the Slytherin characters like Marcus Flint, because he's trying to just deal a bunch of extra damage. Unfortunately, even though green feels like a Slytherin color, you know, potions feels like the Slytherin element, these do not count, so it's just going to be Marcus Flint. Would be neat if Armando Dippett counted for each of the houses, but I wonder what house he was. That I don't know. I need to brush up on my deep-cut Harry Potter lore. So it looks like we just went ahead and played out our Swallowed Snitch to solve our own match, and then hit, you know, Sammy for a bunch of damage, 15, I think, actually. And then Swallowed Snitch is going... sorry, Swallowed Snitch just did that. And then fouled for another couple damage and to skip his next turn. What was it? Yeah, wow, 15. Whew. Those 3-month-long matches, man, they're no joke. You know, you can skip the part where you have to deal 30 damage because Swallowed Snitches, you just discard the hand, which your hand's low anyway, so it's not bad at all. And you get the payoff there. You just get to solve that match. Sammy's getting up into the high lesson range, though, so if he is able to drop 1 or 2 big bomb creatures, even like the Gryffindor Lion is not as scary as you'd like to see for how many lessons he has down. You almost want the dragons to come out, but you know that he's running the house creatures because of all the synergies here. So what you want is Slytherin Serpents. And speak of the devil, Slytherin Serpent coming into the field. So this is a 3/1, and also Slytherin Common Room is going to make sure that we deal that damage equal to the Slytherin cards we have. So we've been doing 1 before each turn, but now we're going to be dealing 2. Oh, sorry, actually, the Slytherin Common Room count? Of course it does. So now we're dealing 3 before every turn. It's like a bludger. It's actually an awful lot of work to do the same amount of damage before every turn as a bludger when you look at it that way. This, of course, can ramp up a bit higher, though, and a little bit harder to do counterplay on locations, because not as many people play locations. Quality Quidditch supplies is going to be a threat to stopping that, though. Muddy Practice is the practice card coming in next. I mean, yeah, you better be playing a match and taking advantage of every single extra Angelina action since we solved Dippett, right? Or not Dippett, we solved Dumbledore's suspension. Looks like Ravenclaw Eagle is next. This is just another one of those house creatures. It's a 2/2 for 4. All of these creatures are like really, really fair statted bodies. Like nothing too exciting, like a 5 cost 3/1, a 4 cost 2/2. But what's nice is Armando kind of helping them all get an extra enter trigger, more or less. Making it a little bit more worth. And it looks like Alahasti Drought is coming out. 6 damage to the opponent and or choosing an item and discarding it. I would be surprised if we took the Quaffle. We're probably going to deal the 6 damage here. At this point, it's a race. I think we're just trying to burn down our opponent. Yep, that's going to be 6 damage off the top for Morrell. Morrell able to fill that hand right back up, though, and this could get scary for Sammy. Thankfully for Sammy, the match that's out right now is Muddy Practice. So, Muddy Practice isn't that bad. It's like a card advantage or discard cards kind of thing. These fouleds are going to be a little annoying. Fouled dealing 4 damage and making us have 1 less action. But now that our creatures here, these are dealing 5 damage and Slytherin's dealing 3. We've got 8 damage before the start of turn. I think Sammy's actually going to take this one. Oh yeah, and the next Alahasi Drought will probably do it. The thing about having the Muddy Practice out is we know that Morrell's really limited on the damage that they can crank out because they've only got 4 lessons. So Fouled is pretty much the tippy top of the damage we can do with instants. So Fouled can be... Oh, excuse me, sorry, 4 damage. And we can't Swallow Snitch on the damage practice. We just have Muddy Practice. So Sammy feels pretty safe there. And actually takes the win. Dealing a little bit of Morrell's own medicine back to him there. With the 3 bludgers coming in the first game against Sammy. And now, of course, in the second game that we were able to capture. Sorry again for that. Missing game 1, but... Sammy able to turn it right back around on him, dealing 3 damage before every turn with Slytherin Common Room, a card that I've not seen played, so that's really, really cool. And able to sneak in a couple extra damage with just the creature damage. You know, creature damage not to be underestimated. Creatures are still very, very good. While bludgers and all of these fun things do damage in between turns and have other synergies and other effects, creatures, they're just the nice tried and true way of dealing damage at the beginning of every turn, and they demand some respect. You know, they accelerate the timer. They make your opponent have to play faster, win faster, just do something, because you're constantly pushing the game towards a win. You're constantly removing options from their deck. And there aren't a lot of cards that answer creatures without being like dedicated creature removal, especially not outside of Transfiguration. So they can normally get pretty far. Your opponent's normally forced to, you know, have specific creature counters in the sideboard and side them in immediately. I do wonder what the sideboard action looked like for both of these guys. I think the flavor is kind of funny with Sammy having Dumbledore's suspension. It's like they called Dippett back, you know. I know Dippett's not alive anymore, but it's like, oh, Dumbledore got suspended, so we had to go ahead and get Dippett. Let's say he retired. You had to make him come back into play here. And Angelina doesn't care if Dumbledore's suspended, man. She's just practicing her Quidditch. So this is going to be just that nice, efficient turn 1-2. It's going to be Quidditch, 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 Quaffle, and we're searching for the 3-month-long match. Quaffle is basically like using an action to play a lesson, but then also getting the perfect next card. And here's the rounding out the set. The Hufflepuff Badger is a 1/3 for 3. So Hufflepuff Badger coming down. I believe that Sammy chose to draw a card with that extra trigger at the end of turn. Nothing wrong with that. Marcus Flint coming down now, and yeah, it's going to be 2 actions for Marcus Flint, but we're going to use it to get rid of 3 cards from our opponent's hand. At this point, probably going to be 3 lessons. Yeah. Or lesson, and Riding the Centaur. Riding the Centaur is a real like hard counter for creatures. I just don't think it's, unless your opponent's being really, really greedy with their deck list, which admittedly a lot of the deck lists we build are, and they only have like, you know, 6 to 8 creatures that they tend to win the game with. Riding the Centaur in a deck like this is you don't mind scrapping a couple of those creatures once you get to that point. He is going to go ahead and get it down, though, so it's going to stop the 1 damage a turn from Hufflepuff Badger. But by the time that Sammy's actually worried about stopping this from happening, he'll have built up his board a little more, taking advantage of the fact that he's got the card advantage over Morrell here, and maybe have a couple creatures to sack. And also, you know, the Riding the Centaur here can return the Marcus Flint to our hand, which we're happy with, because he's just spent right now. In fact, if Sammy has any other characters that have one-shot uses like that, he's going to love to see them now. Wants to draw those and play them, like Hannah's or Peeves. Well, actually, you wouldn't want to play Peeves here. The one thing that Morrell does have going for him is the Bludger is sitting here being a faux creature, dealing 3 damage before every one of Sammy's turns. Or sorry, before every one of Morrell's turns to Sammy. Oh, Snape. Oh man, Snape went to the discard. That stinks, because we would have loved to have played Snape and used his ability and then used him as one of our Centaur bounces. And it looks like Swallowed Snitch is going to solve 3-month-long match, and that is going to be... That's a heck of a top deck. I mean, I say top deck, and we used actions to draw cards here. But, you know, it's not that much of a top deck. But that being the card that he had to discard earlier, him having another one here, getting the 3-month-long match... solve, dealing another 15 damage to Sammy. It's gonna be a lot of damage. Looks like we're solving riding the Centaur. Oh, sorry, we didn't use Swallowed Snitch, we just played it. That's right. I forget this isn't a spell. So Swallowed Snitch is, if your hand has at least 4 cards, you discard this card and your hand, and you win the match. When we actually played Swallowed Snitch, it was the 4th card, so we aren't able to use it yet. Sammy is going to go and just play, you know, get the lessons back to hand, put the Marcus Flint back to hand, solve the Riding the Centaur, and then drop a Hufflepuff Badger with another action of his. So just trying to start getting the creature pressure down. Unfortunately, the Badgers just aren't much pressure. The Bludger is doing more by itself than these 2 Badgers are doing together. You're going to want to start seeing the Serpents, the Slytherin Serpents. Nice 3/1s. Fortunately, we got to build up lessons to get to that, though. And I think what we're about to really see... Yeah, there's another Riding the Centaur. The thing here is that Angelina's just got all this action advantage over Armando. So even though Sammy's got a hand full of all these cards, he just doesn't have enough to do. Right? He doesn't have enough actions to use to play the cards out of his hand. He's looking at, you know, 3-4 turns between him and playing some of the cards he wants to play and being in a position he wants to be in. Morrell is happy to tread water from this position right here. Has successfully returned 8 actions worth of cards. Sorry, 9, because one of them was a Flint. Worth of cards back to Sammy's hand. And the fact that Sammy is behind on actions every turn already doesn't feel good there. So it's like, you know, we just walked back so far. Armando is suffering a little bit there for just not being fast enough. Hey, you know what? It's not his fault. He's an old retired headmaster. You know, I'm sure in his youth he was fast, he was spry. Maybe in his youth he was triggering every time that one of those cards got played, not just once at the end of the turn. Who knows? But Angelina easily flying laps around the headmaster here. As the Bludger just love thinking of, like, in universe applying, like the Bludger is just smashing poor Armando Dippett. Poor Armando Dippett. And everything that he's holding in his hands is just getting knocked out. He doesn't have anything in front of him on the field. It's just a big mess. He's got this one Badger running around. This Bludger's coming back and hit him again for 3. Yep, there it is. Speak of the devil. This Armando's best turn looks like a, you know, Lesson Serpent, and the next turn like Serpent. I just don't think we can do enough about these Bludgers. This is another 6 damage we're going to take, then another 6 on top of that, and we're on a 3-turn clock. We are in trouble. He's putting the counter on him for his 3-month-long match damage he's doing. Not quite enough. Yeah, so the beginning of his turn there, he drops all those cards from the Bludgers, and yeah, even like a fouled here just shores it up. But we're going to go ahead and Swallowed Snitch. We're going to deal 15 with 3-month-long match and put the nail in the coffin here. That is overkill in every sense of the word. Swallowed Snitch, we're going to discard our hand, discard this card from play, and use the match to deal 15 damage to Sammy, and that is game. And I think what we're going to be seeing a lot, guys, and we're going to start seeing people adapt to this, is cards that give action advantage are going to start being the powerful cards, the characters and the cards that people are going to have to deal with. Angelina Johnson, especially with access to things like Fouled, when you're playing effective adventures against your opponent, like riding the Centaur, Angelina Johnson just creating such an enormous action advantage. It's this chasm that these other decks just aren't able to catch up with. And it's not that the other decks are incapable. They're just not running the cards that would put them in those situations, you know? Just talking about any cards that really accelerate your actions or give you action advantage, even if it has to just be a Seamus Finnegan in your deck, I think it's really worth looking at. You know, Platform 9 3/4, Self-Stirring Cauldron, the money cards, the different combos in Quidditch and other things that give you those extra actions, Draco Malfoy, things like that. I think that those are going to be, you know, the types of cards that are more effective, that are winning some more of these games. Or maybe just, you know, more cards that interact with shutting down those strategies, cards that are able to return non-permanent, or permanent, sorry, not non-permanents, able to return things like the matches or the Quidditch items back to hand to just reduce their effectiveness. But that's going to be another one Quidditch takes there, so congratulations to Morrell, and we're going to get this up for you guys soon for another awesome Harry Potter action. If you guys want to come play games with us, join the Discord, join the Revival, HarryPotterTCG.com. We play friendly games every Tuesday just like this, so stop on by and we'd love to see you. Until next time, take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in.